I am Audrey, 35 years old, and family has always been my everything. The annual family retreat was our tradition for 15 years, filled with laughter, bonding, and memories. So, when my parents told me there was not enough space for me this year, something inside me broke. I never imagined being excluded from my own family gathering. Yet, there I was uninvited while 66 others were welcomed. What happened next changed everything. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you have ever felt excluded by family, hit that like and subscribe button. If you want more stories about standing up for yourself when nobody else will, to understand why being excluded from the family retreat cut so deep, you need to know about my family. We are what most would consider an upper-middle-class family from Connecticut. My parents, Harold and Diana, raised 5 children in a spacious colonial home in a picturesque suburb. I am the middle child with 2 older siblings and 2 younger ones. Tyler is the oldest, the golden boy who followed in our father's footsteps into finance. He married his college sweetheart, Eliza, and they have 3 perfect children who excel at everything they touch. Then there is Jessica, the second-born, who became a pediatrician and married a surgeon named Andrew. They have twin boys who are already being groomed for Ivy League schools despite only being 10 years old. After me comes Zachary, the artistic one, who somehow still won our parents' approval by turning his photography hobby into a lucrative career shooting for high-end magazines. He married Sophia, a model he met on a shoot, and they have 1 daughter who already has more Instagram followers than most adults. Finally, there is Heather, the baby of the family who became an elementary school teacher and married her high school boyfriend, Kyle. They have 2 children who are unsurprisingly considered gifted. And then, there is me, Audrey, the middle child, who used to be the family planner, the one who kept everyone connected. I was a marketing executive until 2 years ago when my company downsized. That happened right around the time my marriage fell apart, when I discovered my husband James had been having an affair with his assistant for 3 years. The family retreat tradition started with my grandparents when I was 20 years old. They owned a large cabin in the Burkers and decided that once a year the entire family would gather for a week of reconnection. When they passed away, my parents took over the tradition, upgrading it each year to more luxurious locations. The annual retreat became something sacred in our family calendar, an untouchable week that everyone blocked off no matter what. I actually played a huge role in planning many of these retreats. With my background in event planning and marketing, I had the skills to negotiate rates, plan activities, and create memorable experiences. For 5 consecutive years, I was the one who handled everything from accommodation bookings to custom welcome baskets for each family. My mother would take credit for most of it, but everyone knew I was the one who made it special. After my divorce, things changed subtly at first. My parents had adored James. He was charming, successful, and came from a family they approved of. When our marriage ended, they seemed more upset about losing him than concerned about what I was going through. My mother actually said, "Could you not have just overlooked it?" Many women in my generation did, as if his 3-year affair was a minor indiscretion I should have tolerated. The financial strain after losing my job made things worse. I had to downsize from our marital home to a small apartment. While I looked for new employment, I freelanced to make ends meet. My parents, who had helped my siblings with down payments for their homes and funded lavish weddings, offered no support. Their words still echo in my mind. "You need to learn independence at some point, Audrey." Independence was their code word for punishment. They never said they blamed me for the divorce, but their actions spoke volumes. Holiday gatherings became uncomfortable with questions about my job search that felt more like interrogations than concern. Comments about how well James was doing at his new position stung like salt in an open wound. They even maintained a friendship with him, inviting him to smaller family events where I would have to smile through the pain of seeing him. The family retreat had been my one constant, the week where, despite everything, I felt like I still belonged. I had attended every single one for 15 years, even the year after my divorce, when being around happy couples felt like torture. I showed up, planned activities for the children, and helped my mother with all the details as I always had. There had been moments of tension, but nothing to suggest I would ever be excluded entirely. So when my mother called about this year's retreat, I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. In fact, I had already taken the week off work from my new position, which I had finally secured after 8 months of searching. I was excited about the retreat, seeing it as a chance to show my family I was back on my feet and doing well again. Little did I know that phone call would be the beginning of one of the most painful, yet ultimately empowering experiences of my adult life. The call came on a Tuesday evening, as I was preparing dinner in my apartment. I smiled when I saw my mother's name on the caller ID, assuming she wanted to discuss details for the upcoming retreat, as she usually did around this time of year. "Audrey, I wanted to talk to you about the family retreat." She began, her voice carrying that artificial sweetness she used when delivering bad news. "We have decided to try a new venue this year. A beautiful resort in the Catskills that your father and I visited last fall." "That sounds wonderful," I replied, genuinely excited. "Do you need me to contact them about group rates or special accommodations?" "I have a connection at their corporate office I could reach out to." There was a pause, then a delicate clearing of her throat. "Well, that is what I am calling about. The thing is, Audrey, the accommodations are a bit limited this year." I stirred my pasta sauce, not yet understanding what she was implying. Limited. How do we need to book additional rooms elsewhere? "No, nothing like that. We have reserved all the available cabins, but there is not quite enough space for everyone this year. We had to make some difficult decisions about who to include." The wooden spoon in my hand froze mid-stir. "What do you mean, who is not included?" Another pause, longer this time. "Well, we thought since you are on your own now and everyone else has families to consider." My stomach dropped as her implication became clear. "Are you saying I am not invited to the family retreat?" "Oh, Audrey, do not be so dramatic. We are simply saying that the sleeping arrangements are tight this year, and it makes more sense to prioritize the couples and children. You understand, right? It is just practical." I gripped the counter to steady myself. "Let me get this straight. You are excluding me, your daughter, from the family retreat because I am single." "It is not like that." She said, her tone shifting to defensive. "Tyler and Eliza have 3 children. Jessica and Andrew have the twins. Zachary and Sophia need space for their equipment, and Nanny and Heather and Kyle have their 2 little ones. The cabins only have so many bedrooms." Something did not add up. "Wait, you said this resort is bigger than where we stayed last year and I had my own room. Then how can there suddenly not be enough space?" My mother sighed as if I was being deliberately obtuse. "Audrey, we have also invited your father's brother and his family this year, and your Aunt Lucille and Uncle George are coming with their children. It is a special anniversary year, so we wanted to expand the invitation list." I felt like I had been slapped. "So there is room for extended family, but not for me. I could sleep on a couch or even bring an air mattress. I just want to be there." "The decision has been made, Audrey. Perhaps next year things will be different. I am sure you can find something else to do that week." Her tone was final, brooking. No further discussion. Still reeling, I called my father immediately after hanging up with my mother. His response was even more dismissive. "Your mother explained the situation. We need to keep the numbers manageable, and you are an adult who can understand that. Do not make this difficult, Audrey." I reached out to Tyler next, hoping my older brother might advocate for me, or at least give me the full story. His uncomfortable hesitation told me everything. "How many people are actually going to be there, Tyler?" I asked directly. "I'm not sure exactly," he hedged. "Tyler, please just tell me," he sighed. "Last count was 66, including the kids. The number hit me like a physical blow. 66 people, and somehow there was not room for 67. Not room for me. Over the next few days, I contacted each of my siblings hoping for support, or at least honesty. Jessica was evasive, claiming she had no influence over the guest list. Zachary mumbled something about respecting our parents' decision. Only Heather seemed genuinely upset, but admitted she was afraid to challenge our parents. I made one final attempt with my mother, offering to pay for my own separate accommodation nearby and just join for activities. Her response was telling. "Audrey, we are trying to create a certain atmosphere this year. Your father and I think it would be better for everyone if you sat this one out. You have been going through a lot, and frankly, your mood affects others. Let us have this time without any complications." There it was. I was the complication, the family disappointment, the divorced, recently unemployed middle child who brought down the carefully curated image of family perfection. What hurt most was discovering that my parents had told extended family members that I could not make it this year, rather than admitting they had not invited me. They were actively lying to hide their deliberate exclusion of their own daughter. As the retreat drew closer, social media became a minefield. Photos of shopping trips for retreat supplies appeared on my sister's accounts. Tyler posted about how excited his kids were for the biggest family gathering yet. The family group chat buzzed with planning details until someone remembered I was still in it and created a new one without me. The final blow came when Heather accidentally sent me a photo meant for the new group chat. It showed the retreat schedule, and there at the bottom of the image, partially visible, was a list of room assignments. Next to cabin 7 was Jessica Andrew twins plus James Guest. James, my ex-husband, the man who had betrayed and humiliated me, was invited to my family retreat while I was told there was not enough space. I sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by the remnants of the life I had been rebuilding, and for the first time since my divorce, I completely broke down. The discovery that my ex-husband had been invited to the family retreat sent me into an emotional tailspin, unlike anything I had experienced since the divorce itself. I spent that night cycling through disbelief, devastating hurt, and a burning anger that kept me pacing my apartment until dawn. By morning, exhausted and hollow-eyed, I called in sick to work and made an emergency appointment with my therapist, Dr. Laurel, who had helped me through the aftermath of my divorce. They invited James, but told me there was not enough space. I explained my voice flat with emotional exhaustion. 66 people, including my ex-husband, but no room for their own daughter. Dr. Laurel's expression remained neutral, but I could see concern in her eyes. Audrey, we have talked before about patterns in your family dynamic. This seems to be a particularly painful manifestation of those patterns. She was right. Over our sessions, we had identified how my family operated achievement and image above authenticity, conformity over individuality, and appearances over emotional truth. My divorce had disrupted their narrative of perfect family harmony, marking me as the failure, the outlier. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, I told her. Last Thanksgiving, my mother seated me at the far end of the table with the children. At Christmas, they gave everyone personalized gifts, but handed me a generic gift card. When I hosted a dinner at my new apartment, only Heather showed up and she left early. Dr. Laurel nodded. You mentioned before that your mother blamed you for the divorce despite knowing about James's infidelity. Have there been other instances where family members implied you were at fault? That question unlocked a flood of memories. Jessica once suggesting I might have been too focused on work to keep James interested. My father asking if I had let myself go during the marriage. Tyler's wife Eliza wondering aloud if I had marriage counseling options weeks after I had discovered the affair. As if reconciliation should have been my goal regardless of the betrayal. After my session, I felt raw but slightly more clear-headed. I decided to confront Jessica directly about James's invitation, calling her while she was on her lunch break at the hospital. I know James is going to the retreat, I said without preamble as Jessica's +1. Really? Her initial stammering confirmed it before she found her defense. He is still part of the family. Audrey, the kids adore Uncle James and Andrew, and he have become close friends. It is not personal. Not personal. He cheated on me for 3 years, Jessica. How is inviting him instead of me not personal? Jessica's voice dropped to a harsh whisper, presumably to avoid being overheard by colleagues. Look, the truth is, your negative energy brings everyone down. Mom and Dad think you are still wallowing in self-pity, and nobody wants that atmosphere at the retreat. James is fun and positive. He does not make everything about his problems. Her words stung with the particular pain that only comes from having private insecurities voiced by someone who should love you. My negative energy. I lost my husband and my job within months of each other. Jessica, excuse me for not being a bundle of joy while rebuilding my entire life. It has been 2 years, Audrey. Everyone has problems. The rest of us just do not make them our entire personality. After hanging up, I scrolled through my Instagram feed in a form of emotional self-flagellation. There was my mother posting about retreat preparations, writing how excited she was to have the whole family together. There was Tyler's wife showing off new matching outfits for their kids with the caption, "Retreat ready." Most painful was a photo from my cousin Danielle of shopping bags with the text, "Cannot wait for the epic Watson family gathering next week." The family gathering I was not welcome to attend. I found myself falling into a familiar pattern of self-doubt. Was I really as negative as Jessica claimed? Had I failed to move on appropriately? Was I somehow deserving of this exclusion? In this spiral of questioning, my phone rang. It was Vanessa, my closest friend since college, and one of the few people who had stood steadfastly by me through the divorce and job loss. "I just ran into your cousin Danielle at Nordstrom," she said. "She mentioned how sad it was that you could not make it to the family retreat next week because of work commitments. Is that true?" The lie infuriated me anew. They told you I had work commitments. They uninvited me. Vanessa said there was not enough space, then invited my ex-husband instead. Vanessa's outrage on my behalf was immediate and validating. That is absolute garbage, Audrey. Complete and utter garbage. She showed up at my apartment an hour later with takeout and wine. As we ate, she listened to the whole sordid story, her expression growing increasingly indignant. "You know what this is," she said finally. This is not about space or practicality or any of their other excuses. This is about control and punishment. You deviated from the script by getting divorced instead of maintaining the facade of a perfect marriage. Now they are showing you the consequences. Her clarity cut through my fog of hurt. So what do? Beg for inclusion. Accept the exclusion. Call them out publicly. Vanessa topped off our wine glasses. None of the above. Emotional reactions are exactly what they expect from negative Nancy Audrey. So I just take it. Let them exclude me and pretend it does not matter. No, she said, a slow smile spreading across her face. You show them exactly what they are missing. You take control of the narrative. As the night progressed, fueled by wine and righteous indignation, the kernel of a plan began to form. It was audacious, potentially expensive, and would require calling in favors. But for the first time in days, I felt something beyond hurt. I felt a flicker of power. Before Vanessa left that night, she looked me straight in the eyes. Remember, Audrey, this is not about revenge. This is about reclaiming your place and your power. It is about showing them that excluding you is their loss, not yours. With those words echoing in my mind, I went to bed, not as a victim, but as a woman with a mission. The emotional fallout had been devastating, but from those ashes, something new was emerging, something stronger. The retreat was 2 weeks away. I had planning to do. The morning after my revelation with Vanessa, I woke up with purpose coursing through my veins. My first instinct had been pure emotion, showing up uninvited, creating a scene, forcing my family to acknowledge their cruelty to my face. But I knew that approach would only reinforce their image of me as unstable and negative. No, this required strategy, and strategy happened to be my professional specialty. I started by researching the retreat location, easily finding it from my mother's not-so-subtle social media posts tagging the resort. The Evergreen Pines Resort in the Catskills was indeed impressive. Luxury cabins surrounding a central lodge, multiple amenities, including a lake, hiking trails, tennis courts, and a spa. But what caught my attention was the property listing that appeared in my search results alongside the resort Lakeview Estate. Exclusive property adjacent to Evergreen Pines Resort. I clicked through to discover a stunning mansion available for short-term rentals situated on the same lake as the resort, but offering considerably more luxury. The property featured 8 bedrooms, a private chef's kitchen, an infinity pool overlooking the lake, a home theater, and private dock access. It was extravagant. It was perfect. It was also completely outside my budget. I chewed my lip considering options. My emergency savings would cover perhaps half the cost for the week, but that would leave me financially vulnerable. This plan needed to be financially feasible without being reckless. I called the property management company listed on the website and explained that I was considering the property for a small corporate retreat. The manager, Barbara, was helpful in detailing the amenities, but confirmed my fears about the cost. However, she added, "We do have a last-minute cancellation for those dates, and the owner is anxious not to lose the booking entirely. I could speak to them about a potential discount if you are seriously interested." I thanked her and promised to call back within 24 hours. Next, I opened my contacts list and began to assess my resources. During my years in marketing, I had built a substantial network, including many people in hospitality and event planning, who owed me favors. First called Julian, a former client who now worked for a luxury hospitality group. "Audrey, long time no speak. What can I do for you?" I explained my situation professionally without the emotional details, as a need to create an impressive small gathering on a limited budget. Julian immediately offered to connect me with vendors, who would give me professional courtesies and discounts. Next, call Maggie, my former assistant, who had moved into event planning. She not only volunteered to help coordinate the logistics, but also offered to attend as moral support. Any chance to see you outshine those people who call themselves your family? I am there. By mid-afternoon, I had the beginnings of a network of support. Vanessa had already committed and was reaching out to our mutual friends. I had calls out to several former colleagues who had become friends over the years. My plan required having enough people to make my gathering look intentional and desirable, not like a pathetic attempt to crash the family retreat. I called Barbara back and negotiated a 40% discount on the property rental given the last-minute availability. Still expensive, but now within the realm of possibility if I was careful with my other expenses. With the accommodation secured, I turned to planning activities. The property had a kitchen, but I wanted a special touch. I contacted Daniel, a chef I had worked with on corporate events, who agreed to come for 2 special dinners during the week at a friends and family rate. For daytime activities, I researched options that would be visible to my family without seeming deliberately provocative. The lake was shared between properties, so water activities were an obvious choice. I arranged rental of 2 jet skis and a pontoon boat scheduled for strategic times when the resort would likely have high traffic. I also discovered that while the resort had tennis courts, they did not have pickleball, the trendy sport that several of my family members had recently become obsessed with. The Lakeview estate had space for a temporary court, which I could have set up for a reasonable fee. By evening, I had a spreadsheet detailing costs, a growing guest list of 10 confirmed friends, and a rough itinerary that would make my retreat look effortlessly luxurious without breaking the bank entirely. Vanessa called as I was reviewing my budget. "How is Operation Show Them going?" "It is coming together," I said, surprised by my own calm determination. "I have secured the neighboring property at a discount, have about 10 people committed, and I'm working on making it look amazing without completely draining my savings." "Good, because I just ran into your brother Tyler at the grocery store, and you will never guess what he said." My stomach tightened. "What?" "He asked if we were still on for our trip to Miami that week, loud enough for the cashier to hear. He is actively perpetuating the lie that you have other plans. They are covering their tracks, Audrey." The confirmation of my family's deception only strengthened my resolve. Well, I do have other plans now. Just not the ones they are imagining. The next few days were a flurry of planning. I created a private social media group for my guests, carefully selecting people who were both supportive of me and would make an impression in successful, fun, attractive friends who would photograph well for the inevitable social media posts. I arranged for a professional photographer friend to join us for 2 days in exchange for using the images in her portfolio. I ordered custom welcome baskets for my guests, mimicking but upgrading the ones I used to create for the family retreat. 5 days before the retreat, I received a text from Heather. "Mom keeps talking about how sad it is you cannot make it this year because of your work trip. I feel awful about the lie." "Should I say something?" I responded carefully. "Thank you for your concern, but please do not worry. I have made alternative arrangements for that week that I am actually looking forward to. Enjoy the retreat." It was the truth technically, though not the whole truth. I was not ready to reveal my plan, even to Heather, who seemed genuinely conflicted. The night before I was set to drive to the Catskills, I stood in my bedroom surveying the carefully packed suitcases. I had selected my wardrobe strategically, casual but expensive-looking pieces that would photograph well and convey success without trying too hard. Vanessa called for a final pep talk. "Remember why you are doing this, Audrey. This is not about seeking their approval or making them feel bad. This is about reclaiming your dignity and refusing to be erased from the narrative." "What if it backfires?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "What if they see it as proof that I am desperate and pathetic?" "Then they are not worth your energy," she said firmly. "But I do not think that will happen. Your plan is too good, and you are too strong. Just stay genuine through it all. That is what will really show the difference between you and them." After we hung up, I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was not the same one who had crumbled at her mother's rejection 2 weeks ago. This woman had a spark in her eye and a set to her jaw that spoke of newfound determination. "They did not make space for you," I told my reflection. "So, you are going to create your own." With that thought, I went to bed, setting my alarm for an early departure. Tomorrow, Operation Take Back My Power would officially begin. I arrived at Lakeview Estate just before noon on Saturday, deliberately timing my entrance to avoid any premature encounters with my family, who would be checking into the resort around 3, according to Heather's inadvertent information. The property was even more impressive in person. A sprawling modern mansion with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the crystal blue lake that gave the estate its name. Barbara, the property manager, met me at the entrance. "Miss Watson, welcome to Lakeview. Everything has been prepared according to your specifications." She gave me a tour of the estate, and I had to work to maintain my composure. The great room with its 20-ft ceilings and stone fireplace opened onto a terrace with an infinity pool that seemed to merge with the lake beyond. The kitchen was a chef's dream with top-of-the-line appliances and a massive island that could seat 10. Each bedroom had been prepared with luxury linens and welcome notes I had sent ahead. "Your guests can begin arriving anytime," Barbara informed me. "The chef will arrive at 4 to begin preparations for tonight's welcome dinner, and the activity vendors will check in with you directly about tomorrow's schedule." I thanked her, and once alone allowed myself a moment to absorb the magnitude of what I was doing. The estate had cost a significant portion of my savings even with the discount. The activities, food, and special touches were stretching my budget to its limit. Yet, standing there looking out at the lake, where my family would soon be gathering without me, I knew it was worth it. My friends began arriving around 2. Vanessa was first, followed by Maggie and her husband Paul, then Julian and his partner Stephen. By 4, all 10 guests had arrived, each reacting with appropriate awe to the accommodations and expressing excitement about the week ahead. I had been strategic about my guest list. Julian and Stephen were successful, charming, and would impress even my status-conscious parents. Maggie and Paul were the fun-loving couple who would bring energy to any gathering. I had also invited Lindsay, a former colleague who had become a minor social media influencer. Knowing her presence would ensure our activities would be well documented online. As everyone settled in, I explained the full context of our gathering, something I had only outlined briefly in my invitations. "I want to thank you all for coming on such short notice. As you know, my family excluded me from their annual retreat, but lied about the reason. They are staying next door at Evergreen Pines Resort, believing I am on a business trip in Miami. Their loss is our gain." Julian raised his glass. "This place is incredible, Audrey. What they did was cruel," Vanessa added. "But your response is pure genius. Living well really is the best revenge." I smiled but shook my head. "This is not about revenge. It is about refusing to be made invisible. I will not cause a scene or confront them, but I will not hide either. If we happen to cross paths with them, we will be polite, confident, and having a genuinely good time." The welcome dinner that evening was spectacular. Daniel, the chef, prepared a multi-course meal featuring local ingredients that we enjoyed on the terrace as the sun set over the lake. Conversation flowed easily. Laughter echoed across the water. And for the first time since the painful phone call with my mother, I felt truly happy. Lindsay, true to form, documented the evening beautifully on her social media, tagging me and our location. I knew it would only be a matter of time before a family member saw the posts and realized I was not in Miami, but practically next door. The next morning, we enjoyed a leisurely breakfast before our first scheduled activity, kayaking on the lake. The timing was deliberate. I knew from previous retreats that my family typically did water activities on Sunday mornings. Sure enough, as our group of 6 kayaks paddled toward the center of the lake, I spotted them, my parents, siblings, their spouses, and various children and relatives on the resort's beach. They were too far away to make out expressions, but I could see the moment of recognition in their body language, the sudden stillness, the pointing in our direction. I smiled and waved naturally, as if spotting acquaintances rather than family, who had deliberately excluded me. Then I returned to my conversation with Julian, determined not to appear focused on their reaction. Our next encounter was more direct and entirely coincidental. After kayaking, I had arranged for our group to have lunch at the local winery that bordered both properties. As we were being seated on the terrace, I spotted my mother, Jessica, and several female relatives, including my aunts, being led to a nearby table. My mother's expression when she saw me was priceless, shock quickly masked by a brittle smile. Jessica looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Audrey," my mother exclaimed with false brightness. "What a surprise. I thought you were in Miami for work." I approached their table with casual confidence, my friends, hanging back but within earshot. Change of plans. I decided to rent Lakeview Estate with some friends instead. What a coincidence that we are practically neighbors this week. My Aunt Lucille looked confused. "But Diana, you said Audrey could not make it to the family retreat because of work commitments." The flush that spread across my mother's face was deeply satisfying. There must have been a misunderstanding, she managed. We thought Audrey was busy. I was never too busy for family, I said pleasantly. Anyway, I should introduce you to my friends. We are having the most amazing time at Lakeview. I made the introductions, watching my mother's eyes widen slightly as Julian mentioned his executive position and Lindsay casually referenced her social media following. My friends were charming, successful, and clearly enjoying themselves. A far cry from the sad, negative person my family had painted me to be. Well, we should get back to our table, I said after a few minutes of conversation. Enjoy your lunch. As we walked away, Vanessa squeezed my arm. You were perfect. Did you see your mother's face? She looked like she was sucking on a lemon. Jessica could not even make eye contact, Maggie added. She knows exactly what they did. Throughout the afternoon, news of my presence spread through the family. My phone buzzed with texts from Heather. OMG, you are here. Can we talk, Tyler? Quite the coincidence. Mom is freaking out. And even my father, your mother, is upset. What are you playing at, Audrey? I responded to Heather, warmly ignored Tyler, and told my father I was simply enjoying a vacation with friends and hoped the family retreat was going well. By evening, the dynamic had shifted further. We had arranged for our pontoon boat to anchor near a popular swimming spot, complete with music, drinks, and the floating lounge chairs I had rented. Several of my nieces and nephews spotted us and began begging their parents to go see Aunt Audrey's cool boat. My brother Zachary eventually paddle-boarded over with his daughter Maya, attempting casual conversation. This is quite the setup you have, he said, eyeing our spread of drinks and snacks. We are keeping it simple today, I replied. Tomorrow we have jet skis arriving. Maya, you and your cousins are welcome to come over and use our dock anytime. We have plenty of space. Maya's eyes lit up. Can I, Dad, please? Zachary looked torn between his daughter's excitement and loyalty to our parents. We will see. He hedged before asking in a lower voice. Is this some kind of statement, Audrey? I met his gaze directly. No statement, just enjoying my vacation with people who actually want me around. The next day, the boundaries between the two gatherings began to blur. My teenage nieces and nephews happened to walk by Lakeview during our pickleball tournament and were enthusiastically invited to join. My cousins Brian and Danielle engineered a chance meeting on a hiking trail and ended up returning with us to the estate for drinks. By day 4, the trickle had become a steady stream. The jet skis proved irresistible to the younger generation, and my offer of open access to our dock meant constant traffic between the properties. My pickleball court became the preferred gathering spot over the resort's tennis courts. The pizza night I had arranged with a mobile wood-fired oven set up on our terrace drew nearly 20 family members who just stopped by to say hello. Through it all, I maintained the same warm, genuine attitude. I never mentioned the rejection or questioned anyone's presence. I simply welcomed everyone as if this parallel gathering had been the plan all along. My parents remained conspicuously absent, as did Jessica and James. But with each passing day, more family members drifted to Lakeview, drawn by the relaxed atmosphere, fun activities, and perhaps curiosity about this new version of Audrey, who seemed so different from the negative person they had been told about. On the 5th day, as I was setting up for an afternoon of board games on the terrace, I spotted my mother watching from the property line, her expression unreadable. When she saw me notice her, she quickly turned and walked away. The confrontation I had been anticipating was brewing. I could feel it. That evening, as we were preparing for the gourmet barbecue, Daniel had planned the doorbell rang. Standing on the doorstep was my mother alone and clearly uncomfortable. "May I speak with you privately?" she asked, her voice tight. The moment of reckoning had arrived. I led my mother to a quiet seating area on the side terrace, away from my friends who were helping set up for the barbecue. Her posture was rigid, her handbag clutched tightly against her chest like armor. "Would you like something to drink?" I offered, determined to maintain the role of gracious hostess. "No, thank you," she declined, her tone clipped. "I will get straight to the point, Audrey. What exactly do you think you are doing?" I raised an eyebrow. "I am having a vacation with friends. Is there something wrong with that? Do not play innocent. You deliberately chose a property next to our family retreat after being told we did not have space for you. This whole display," she gestured toward the estate, "is clearly intended to disrupt our gathering and make some sort of statement." I took a measured breath. "Mom, I chose this property because it is beautiful and available. The fact that it happens to be next to the family retreat is convenient for the family members who want to visit both locations. That is another thing." Her voice rose slightly. "You have been luring family members away from planned activities. Zachary's children missed the family photo session yesterday because they were using your jet skis. I have not lured anyone. I extended an open invitation, and people chose to accept it. Perhaps you should ask yourself why so many family members prefer spending time here. My mother's face flushed. Because you are bribing them with expensive toys and activities. This is not about genuine family connection, Audrey. This is about you showing off and trying to make your father and me look bad. The accusation stung, but I refused to show it. Mom, I invited friends to share a vacation. I have welcomed any family who wanted to stop by. That is all. If you feel I am making you look bad, perhaps that is your conscience speaking. Your conscience should be the one troubled. She snapped. You know very well that James is part of this retreat. How do you think he feels seeing you parading around next door and there it was the real issue? James's comfort was more important to her than her own daughter's feelings. The realization should have hurt, but instead it clarified everything. I do not particularly care how James feels, I said calmly, just as you did not care how I would feel being excluded from a family gathering while my ex-husband was welcomed. James is still part of this family. The children adore him, and he has maintained relationships with your siblings. We could not uninvite him just because you two could not make your marriage work. I felt a flash of anger but kept my voice steady. My marriage ended because James had a 3-year affair. Mom, something you know perfectly well. Yet somehow in your narrative, I am the one who could not make it work. And that justified excluding your own daughter while welcoming the man who betrayed her. My mother's expression wavered for a moment before hardening again. You have been negative and difficult ever since the divorce. Audrey, always the victim, always bringing down the mood. James moved on gracefully. Why could not you moved on gracefully, Mom? He moved on to his affair partner before our divorce was even finalized. And yes, I struggled after simultaneously losing my marriage and my job. I apologize if my pain was inconvenient for the family image. Before she could respond, we were interrupted by Tyler, who approached looking uncomfortable. Sorry to interrupt, but Dad sent me to find you, Mom. The caterers need approval on something. My mother stood straightening her linen pants with sharp movements. This conversation is not over. Audrey, what you are doing is deliberately sabotaging our family retreat, and I will not stand for it. As she walked away, Tyler lingered, shifting his weight awkwardly. For what it is worth, he said quietly. I told them it was wrong not to invite you. I should have pushed harder. I am sorry. His unexpected apology caught me off guard. Thank you for saying that, Tyler. This place is amazing, by the way, he added, glancing around. Maya has not stopped talking about the jet skis. Any chance I could bring the kids over tomorrow for another ride? I smiled genuinely. Of course, you are all welcome anytime. After Tyler left, Vanessa appeared at my side. I saw the Ice Queen making her exit. How did it go? About as expected, I sighed. She accused me of sabotaging the family retreat and suggested I should be more concerned about James's comfort than my own inclusion. Vanessa's eyebrows shot up. Seriously, that is some next-level maternal betrayal right there. The thing is, I said slowly, processing my feelings, I am not even that hurt anymore. I just see her clearly now, maybe for the first time, and I feel free. The barbecue that evening was another success, with several cousins and their spouses joining us. The conversation flowed easily, and I found myself genuinely enjoying the company of extended family members. I had rarely had one-on-one time with at official family gatherings. My cousin Beverly, my mother's sister's daughter, pulled me aside at one point. I need to tell you something, Audrey. The story we were all told was that you could not come because of work commitments. It was only yesterday, when Aunt Diana was complaining about you showing up to cause trouble, that I realized you had been deliberately excluded. That seems to be the official family narrative. I acknowledged. Beverly looked troubled. There is more. I overheard your mother and Jessica talking last night. Jessica was saying they should have anticipated you might find out about the retreat through social media. Your mother said, and I quote, Audrey has always needed to be the center of attention. This is exactly why we did not want her here in the first place. The words hurt, but they also confirmed what I already suspected. Thank you for telling me, Beverly. I appreciate your honesty. For what it is worth, many of us think this is ridiculous. The family retreat has always included everyone. Excluding you while inviting your ex-husband is just cruel. The next morning brought another unexpected development. Jessica's husband Andrew appeared at Lakeview asking to speak with me. We sat by the pool, the awkwardness between us palpable. I want to clear something up, he began without preamble about James. His invitation did not come from Jessica and me. Despite what you may have heard, Your parents invited him directly and told us we were hosting him. I was surprised by this disclosure. Why are you telling me this? Andrew looked uncomfortable. Because James has been telling stories about your marriage, about the divorce, making himself look like the wounded party. Most of us saw through it, but your parents seem to believe every word. And Jessica, does she believe him too? She did at first, he admitted, but she overheard him last night drunk, telling some of the younger cousins that you had emotional problems that made you impossible to live with. It was ugly, Audrey. Jessica confronted him and it got heated. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication that James's true colors were showing hurt that my family had believed him, and a strange gratitude toward Jessica for finally defending me. Later that day, as my friends and I were returning from a hike, we encountered a large group from the family retreat, heading to the resort's restaurant for dinner. Among them were my parents, Jessica, James, and several other relatives. The tension was immediate and obvious. My father stepped forward, his expression stern. Audrey, your mother tells me you have been causing quite a stir. Before I could respond, Tyler unexpectedly spoke up. Dad, Audrey has not been causing anything. She is having a vacation with her friends. We are the ones who have been crashing her gathering. My father looked taken back by Tyler's defense. Nevertheless, this whole situation is inappropriate, creating a parallel retreat right next door after we explained the space limitations. Space limitations? My cousin Beverly interrupted incredulously. Uncle Harold, there are 66 people at the resort. One more would hardly have made a difference. An uncomfortable murmur ran through the gathered family members. My father looked around, suddenly aware that the narrative was shifting. James, perhaps sensing he was losing his audience, stepped forward. This is classic Audrey behavior, always needing to be the center of attention, creating drama. That is enough, James. It was Jessica who cut him off, her voice sharp. You do not get to speak about my sister that way. Not after what Andrew told me about the real reason for your divorce. James's face darkened. Your sister is mentally unstable. She fabricated stories about I saw the texts. James, Jessica interrupted. Andrew found them on your phone last night when you passed out. The ones to your girlfriend. The ones that started 3 years before the divorce. So unless you want me to read them out loud right here, I suggest you shut up. A shocked silence fell over the group. My mother, who had been watching the exchange with increasing distress, suddenly turned on Jessica. How dare you speak to James that way, after everything he has been through? This is exactly what I was afraid would happen if Audrey came to the retreat. Nothing but drama and fighting. The only drama here is the one you created by excluding your own daughter while inviting the man who cheated on her, Beverly, shot back. And that was when my mother lost control completely. Her face contorted with rage, she screamed. Audrey has always been the problem in this family. Always difficult, always failing, always needing special attention. She could not keep her marriage together. She could not keep her job. And now she is deliberately ruining our family retreat out of spite. Her outburst echoed across the path, leaving everyone stunned. In the silence that followed, all eyes turned to me, waiting for my response. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and felt an unexpected wave of compassion beneath my hurt. She was trapped in her own narrative, her own need for perfection and control. I am not here to ruin anything, Mom, I said quietly. I am here because I refuse to be erased from this family, because I do not fit your perfect image. I do not need to compete for a place at the family retreat. I made my own space, and anyone who wants to be part of it is welcome, including you and Dad. With that, I turned and continued walking toward Lakeview Estate, my friends falling in step beside me. Behind us, I could hear the murmur of conversations, resuming my mother's continued protests, and my father's attempts to restore order. But something fundamental had shifted. The carefully constructed narrative about negative Audrey had crumbled in the face of truth, and for the first time in years, I felt truly seen by members of my own family. The morning after my mother's public outburst, I sat on the terrace of Lakeview Estate, watching the sunrise over the lake and reflecting on everything that had transpired. A part of me had expected to feel triumphant to savor the moment when my family's carefully constructed narrative about me had publicly unraveled. Instead, I felt oddly peaceful, as if a burden I had been carrying for years had finally been set down. My phone had been unusually active since the previous evening. Text messages from cousins expressing support, an email from Tyler acknowledging how wrong the exclusion had been, even a brief message from my father asking if we could talk later that day. Notably absent was any communication from my mother or from James. According to Beverly, who had texted me late into the night, James had packed his bags and left the resort shortly after the confrontation, claiming a work emergency. My mother had retreated to her cabin and refused to come out for dinner. Vanessa joined me on the terrace, coffee in hand. "How are you feeling after yesterday's drama?" "Surprisingly, okay," I admitted. I expected to feel vindicated or satisfied, but mostly I just feel clear, like I can finally see the family dynamic for what it is without being consumed by it. "That is growth, my friend," she said, raising her mug in a toast. "And from where I am sitting, you handled yourself with remarkable grace. You did not stoop to their level, even when provoked." Around mid-morning, Heather arrived at Lake View with her children. While the kids joined the others at the pool, she pulled me aside, her eyes red from crying. "I am so sorry, Audrey," she began, her voice breaking. "I knew it was wrong not to include you, but I was too cowardly to stand up to Mom and Dad. I should have refused to come if you were not invited." I squeezed her hand. "Heather, you do not need to apologize. I understand the position you were in." "No, I do," she insisted. "I have always gone along with Mom's version of events because it was easier than standing up for what is right. But seeing how they treated you, hearing what Mom said yesterday, it made me realize I have been complicit in something really toxic." Her sincerity touched me deeply. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. The kids have been asking if we can just stay here with you for the rest of the week," she added with a small smile. "They say Aunt Audrey's retreat is more fun. You are all welcome to stay as long as you like." "We have plenty of space," I replied. The irony of that statement, not lost on either of us. Throughout the day, more family members drifted over to Lakeview. Some came with apologies, others simply seeking escape from the tense atmosphere that now pervaded the official family retreat. By afternoon, our planned board game tournament had expanded to include nearly 20 family members. The laughter and friendly competition, creating exactly the kind of bonding experience the retreat was supposed to foster. Around 4, Tyler texted that our father wanted to speak with me and asked if he could come over. I agreed, suggesting we meet on the dock for privacy. My father arrived, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. The confident, authoritative man, who had always seemed to have all the answers, now appeared older and somewhat diminished. "This is quite the place you have here," he said, gesturing toward the estate. "It is beautiful," I agreed. "Would you like to walk along the shoreline?" As we walked, my father cleared his throat several times before finally speaking. "Your mother is very upset about what happened yesterday." "I imagine she is," I said neutrally. "She feels that you deliberately created this situation to embarrass her and disrupt the retreat." I stopped walking and turned to face him directly. "Dad, I created this situation because I refused to be excluded from a family tradition while being lied about. The fact that other family members have chosen to spend time here speaks for itself." He sighed heavily. "Perhaps we handled things poorly," your mother thought. "Well, she thought having James there instead of you would be less complicated." "Less complicated for whom?" "Certainly not for me. Discovering my ex-husband was invited to the family gathering I was excluded from. You and James divorced 2 years ago. Audrey, your mother thought you would have moved on by now." "I have moved on from James," I said firmly. "What I have not moved on from is the expectation that my family would support me, rather than the man who betrayed me, or at minimum not choose him over me for a family gathering." My father looked genuinely perplexed. "We did not choose him over you. We simply thought you did choose him, Dad, explicitly and deliberately, and then lied to the extended family about why I was not there." He was silent for a long moment, gazing out at the lake. "I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound bad." "It was bad. It was hurtful in a way I still struggle to articulate." Another long silence stretched between us before he spoke again. "Your mother and I have not always understood your choices, Audrey. The divorce, some of your career decisions, they seemed impulsive to us. My divorce was not a choice or an impulse, Dad. It was a necessary response to betrayal, and my career changes came after losing a job I loved during a major economic downturn. I have been doing the best I can with the circumstances I faced." Something in my calm certainty seemed to reach him. He nodded slowly. "I can see that now. And I can see that this," he gestured toward Lakeview Estate, "took planning and resourcefulness. You have created something quite remarkable here on short notice." It was as close to an apology as I was likely to get from my father, who had never been one to admit mistakes directly. I accepted it for what it was. "Thank you for coming to talk to me," I said. "I appreciate it. Will you come say hello to your mother before the retreat ends? It would mean a lot to her, even if she will not admit it." I considered his request carefully. "I will. but not to apologize or pretend that what happened was okay. I will come as myself on my own terms. He nodded, accepting my condition. That seems fair. The following day, I walked over to the resort with Vanessa for moral support. My mother was sitting on the deck of the main lodge, a book open but clearly unread in her lap. She straightened when she saw me approaching, her expression guarded. "Mom," I greeted her simply. "Audrey," she responded, her tone carefully neutral. "Your father said you might stop by." I sat in the chair across from her. "I wanted to see you before the retreat ends tomorrow. I suppose you feel you have won." She said, a hint of bitterness in her voice. "This was never about winning or losing, Mom. It was about refusing to be erased." She looked away, her profile rigid. "You have turned the family against me, made me look like the villain. I have not turned anyone against you. I simply created my own space when you made it clear there was none for me and yours. Everything else that happened was the natural consequence of the choices you made." My mother remained silent, her fingers gripping the armrests of her chair. "I do not expect you to understand or approve of my response," I continued, "but I do hope that someday you will recognize that excluding your child while welcoming the person who hurt them is not what families should do." She finally looked at me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You have always been so different from the others, Audrey, so determined to do things your own way. It made it hard to know how to be your mother." It was perhaps the most honest thing she had ever said to me, not an apology, but an acknowledgement of the fundamental disconnect between us. "I am different," I agreed, "but that should not make me less worthy of inclusion in this family." We did not resolve anything in that conversation. There was no tearful reconciliation, no dramatic apology, but something subtle shifted between us. A recognition, perhaps, that our relationship would need to be rebuilt on new terms, if it was to continue at all. The last day of the retreat brought a surprising development. What had begun as 2 separate gatherings had evolved into something more fluid with family members, moving between the properties based on activities and preferences rather than allegiance. For the final dinner, we decided to combine resources, setting up tables on the beach between the properties where everyone could gather together. As I helped arrange the tables, Jessica approached me. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "I believed James's version of events because it was easier than accepting that he would do something so terrible. I should have trusted you, my sister, over him." "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "And thank you for standing up for me yesterday. That meant a lot." "Andrew showed me the texts," she said, her expression troubled. "They were so calculating, so manipulative, all while he was pretending to be the perfect husband to you and the perfect brother-in-law to us. I feel sick thinking about how we welcomed him while excluding you." Her genuine remorse touched me. We cannot change what happened, but we can move forward differently. The combined dinner was not without its awkward moments. My mother maintained a polite but distant demeanor, speaking to me only when necessary. A few relatives who had firmly taken her side in the conflict kept their distance, but the majority of the family seemed relieved by the tentative peace, and the evening ended with plans already being discussed for next year's retreat. As I packed the following morning, preparing to return to my regular life, I reflected on everything I had learned during this extraordinary week. I had learned that standing up for yourself does not have to mean lashing out in anger or seeking revenge. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply refusing to accept the narrative others create about you. I had learned that family dynamics built on appearance rather than authentic connection will inevitably fracture when tested, and that the people who truly love you will find their way back to you even after mistakes are made. Most importantly, I had learned that when others will not make space for you, sometimes you need to create your own. And when you do, you may find that the space you create becomes a gathering place for others seeking the same authenticity and acceptance. The drive home was quiet, my thoughts still processing everything that had transpired. In the weeks that followed, the family relationships continued to evolve. My father made efforts to reconnect, calling regularly, and even visiting me in the city for lunch. My siblings, particularly Jessica and Tyler, became more present in my life, reaching out in ways they had not done since before my divorce. My mother remained the most resistant to change, still struggling to accept her role in what had happened. But even she had begun making small overtures, forwarding articles she thought might interest me, asking about my work in our family group chat. A year later, as plans for the next family retreat began taking shape, I received a direct invitation from my father, followed by confirmation from my mother. There was no mention of space limitations or exclusions. When I asked if James would be attending, my father's response was immediate and firm. "Absolutely not. He is not family, you are. It was a small victory, but an important one. The work of healing our family would be ongoing, but the foundation was being rebuilt on more solid ground. As I consider all that transpired that summer, I am reminded that true family is defined not by obligation or appearances, but by love, respect, and making space for each other, even when it is inconvenient, even when it challenges our preconceptions, even when it requires us to acknowledge our mistakes. Have you ever had to create your own space when others would not make room for you? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to stand up for yourself with grace and dignity. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, sometimes the family we create around us is just as important as the one we were born into. Music,